Hello and welcome back to Tales. This is a podcast about animals and a space where I like to share pet stories. And if you tuned in for episode number 1, you know that I had a German Shepherd, and this podcast was heavily inspired by his life. And I thought to myself, what would be a better way to start off the show than to invite a good friend of mine who is also a mentor and an expert with dogs and the animal food industry on the show, talk to them, get to know their story, but also learn about the amazing work that they do. And for episode number 2, I am beyond excited to have Athena, my mentor, someone who is brilliant and has had so many great conversations with me over the years and has taught me a lot. I got an opportunity to hop on a Zoom call, and this was that conversation. So I hope you enjoy, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Athena.
Okay, here, I'll count us down. 3, 2, 1. Hi, Eddie. This is Athena Boulgarides. I'm the CEO of Happy Tales Canine Wellness. And I'm so excited to be on your show today, Eddie, because we met a few years back, and I've gotten to know you, and it's just been an absolutely glorious, exciting, wonderful journey, just getting to know you and hearing about all your creative thoughts. And now I get to be on your podcast.
You are listening to Tales, episode 2. Talk to me on a podcast. And yeah, for everyone listening out there, Athena and I have been friends for a very long time at this point, and I consider you basically part of my family. You're a mentor, but you're also just somebody that I just care for very deeply. And we have a lot of things that we bond over, but one of those is definitely pets and animals. And I know that many of you have heard the story of my dog, and Athena really cared about my dog and just gave me so many snacks that servers absolutely love, which we're going to get into. I don't want to take away your time, so I want to just dive in and talk about some of the fun stories that you might have for us. And so why don't we go ahead and start talking about your pet, which I believe today we're going to be talking about Riley, or at least start with Riley. And I'm curious how you two met. Like, how was it that Riley came into your life?
Well, thank you, Eddie. I wanted to get a dog at the time, and this was 7 years ago. And I found Ace online at a place called Puppy Heaven in Agora Hills. And I've never gone this route. I've usually rescued dogs, but the kids really wanted a puppy. And so I thought I'd give it a go, and I tried it out, went over there. I saw Ace. I just fell in love. But then they brought in these 2 little pups. This was, they were just brought in from the breeder, and one of them was Riley. And my niece fell in love with Riley almost instantly. So instead of just getting one dog, we ended up getting both dogs, and they got along great. And they were both, Ace was 4 months, Riley was 3 months old, and they became fast friends, but they also, battled it out a few times because one's a boy, one's a girl. And it was just hysterical, right? Like, watching them play was endlessly fascinating and enjoyable. But Riley was not doing so well. So I took her to the vet, and we did a fecal test. And my vet said that she had an infestation that was not domestic.
Oh, no.
And what that meant was that the antibiotics probably wouldn't work, and that she probably was not going to make it. And I had her about a week, and it just, I can't tell you what it did to my heart, other than, some horrible cartoon from the 70s where your heart gets ripped out and it's stomped on. And I was just blindsided by that thought. I had fallen so in love with both dogs. And the thought of her passing was not okay with me. It was truly not okay with me in a place that I didn't even know existed. So I put my science hat on and my logical hat on. And probiotics had been a big part of my life for several years. So I made a probiotic and protein paste little concoction, and she would lick it off my finger because she could barely even eat at this point. She could barely lift her head. Things were coming out of the body all over, and poor baby, and blood, and just, it was bad. And I felt, all right, well, if the antibiotics did not work, and I felt like this was the last ditch effort, but I had faith in it because I know the power of probiotics to heal the gut. So we did that. And within 3 days, she was running around like nothing was wrong.
Wow.
And yes. And that began a journey of learning all about what the pet food industry was doing, what they were offering, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And I realized kind of in short order that things were amiss. Things hadn't progressed maybe the way they should have or could have in the industry as a whole. So I started speaking with scientists and ingredient manufacturers, and I kept just reaching for the top. So I ended up speaking with the top people in this field, and I found out so much. I had done, by the time, I guess Riley was 3 years old, I had really amassed, quite a few terabytes full of information. But these relationships with really well-meaning and intelligent people that were sharing their frustrations about the pet industry with me as well, and that they had been in for 30 years. So what I did is I went back to them and I said, look, I want to make products that are the best possible products for the dogs. And will you help me do that? And, a few of them said, Athena, I've been in this industry 30 years and no one ever said that to me. Inside, in the industry, it wasn't a priority. And I say that with, mixed emotions, because there were companies that started out with those intentions and then they get lost, right? Or there's a profit issue or there's sourcing issues. So, I asked them just frankly, how difficult would it be, to do this? Would it be that ridiculously expensive? Is it something that we can't compete in? And they said, not at all. It's just that profit motive drives. It's a hard driver in terms of lowering costs and optimizing profit, of course. But the industry also has kind of taken shape or fallen in the hands of a very few players who will continuously buy up the brands and the smaller brands that come up. So I kind of got a lay of the land now, right? And I see what the problems are from the insiders, and that there's solutions, and the solutions just haven't been executed. So, right. And so that's when I got really serious putting pen to paper. And I said, well, we have ideas for supplements and for treats and for food that would be game changers and would offer these, what they call targeted benefits, but pretty serious health benefits for the dog. So we can start undoing all of the damage that has been done to the dogs by the big bag of kibble. I'll call it that. And not every big bag of kibble is bad, but for the most part, it's not good for the dog. And I would say probably 90% of the products that were out and available back in 2010 were pretty much not good for your dog. They would cause more problems, right? Leaky gut syndrome, full of starch, really bad. So now we have to undo all that damage. And thanks to these brilliant people, I began to understand that they had done just decades of research on postbiotics. And Dr. Greg Sunvold, who is now our Chief Science and Technology Officer, he is kind of the world's leading expert on biotics and the microbiome for the pet. And he's such a treasure and such a sweetheart and just cares like you can't believe. And he has guided many companies. He's worked for IAMS and Procter & Gamble and many companies. But he came on board with us full time as our Chief Science and Technology Officer because of my commitment to this goal. And I know that he, with his formulas and, and the think tank that we have, we could do it. And we did. And so now we just, in the last summer, 2023, we won a very prestigious award for our Journey Up treats because of how we manufactured them. And it's on the packaging, so there's no mystery meat there. You can read the package, but we added a blend of prebiotics. And not to get too granular, but we all need prebiotics. They come in natural forms in some foods, but what they do in the powder form when you ingest them is they kind of grab on like with Velcro to the bad bacteria, and it washes the bad bacteria out of the body. And when you're feeding a dog, kibble and product like that for a long time, the bad bacteria just has a party, and it doesn't have they never go to sleep. They don't have an off switch. So they just eat right through the gut line, believe it or not. So the first way to heal is to get that bad bacteria out of there. Then the probiotics add the good bacteria. The postbiotics heal the actual gut lining, the mucosa, the gut lining, the lymph tissue. It's one of the most healing ingredients we've ever seen. And the data, there's reams and reams of data on this from the folks at Cargill and some folks at a company called Adair out of Paris and Italy. And so we have kind of a worldwide convention of in our brain trust of folks that really advance the science. So, what we did was release them in the marketplace, and we saw the results. And Eddie, I'm so glad I got to see your pup in videos and how much he loved our treats.
Yeah, that's right. I would send them to you all the time because he would love. I kid you not to everybody. Anytime that Athena would gift me with some of your snacks, they're not like anything I've ever tried before. I mean, I obviously wouldn't try them because they're not for humans. I can't. But we tried so many snacks with him. He was such a picky eater, but there was something about your snacks that he couldn't get enough of. He would just stick his head in there. I'm gonna input one of those videos in here so that people can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. I can definitely attest to that.
I love the one with his head in the bag. It's so cute.
Yeah, he's chowing down. He went right in. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because the dog knows what's good for it. Even when it tries to eat something dead on the sidewalk, it knows it comes fully equipped, let's say, and understands what's good for it. And so when they run across our treats, if you can imagine, one of my vet friends put it this way. When I asked him about the kibble, he said, "How would you feel if you ate cardboard for 12 years?"
Is that an accurate description of what kibble is? Is kibble just like a giant mixture? Because I've always heard, and I'm not an expert, and you and I have talked about this before, but I don't remember a lot of it because there's so much information about it. What is kibble in general when we talk about kibble for dogs?
They put a bunch of ingredients together. Let's say, and if you look on the back of the bag, you'll see it. It's like beef, chicken, whatever. And then there's maybe potato, rice, a bunch of starches, and then some vitamins, and then some other stuff, and like preservatives. But what the problem is first of all, dogs are not designed to digest starches. They have a single chamber stomach and a very short digestive tract. And they are designed to eat a lot of protein, raw protein, quickly, and then be able to digest it slowly over time. So when you conversely, humans have a 4-chamber stomach. So we can have like wine and fermented foods, and we can handle all of that and digest it. We're built for that. They are not. So when you put starch in a dog's tummy, it just is rejecting it the entire time. There's lots of scientific words you can say, but I think to make it simply and clearly, it's just rejecting it, and it facilitates the growth of the bad bacteria. So the bad bacteria then takes over, and it's driving the ship. So what we put in our treats was, like the Jazzy Jerkies are 95% protein. And we put in the salmon oil and the prebiotics. So you have this kind of a masterful combination of what the dog needs. And it's also a way to begin healing the gut. And then with the Journey Ups, we added the fruits and vegetables, berries, which makes it almost a complete food. So that's where I think the dogs just absolutely love, like the Pumpkin Power Up and the Berry Glow Up are the 2 favorites. And we're so proud of it. And yes, we won the, I didn't mention the award, sorry. We won the 2023 Jerky Treat of the Year Award from the Pet Innovation Awards group.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you. And I believe there were 2,000 entries from around the world. And, the managing director, Travis Brandt, contacted me about 2 days before the nomination period was closing. And he invited me to nominate our treats. And then 2 days later, I got the email that we were chosen. So I know that we're on a lot of people's radars. And believe it or not, Nestle was the company that sponsored that award. So we have heard from Nestle a few times, and, we're looking at the big picture. We're looking at becoming, a major player in this industry, but doing it our way and doing it with healthy products that will add benefit and promote a longer, healthier life for the dog. And that's when we step into the supplements, which are, I think, a masterpiece. There's nothing like them out there. There's pro, postbiotics, antioxidants, digestive enzymes. And then for the mobility, we put in greenlet mussels and glucosamine chondroitin, and you see the results. We have seen dogs who were, basically huddled up in a corner in pain all day, all night, having seizures, whether it was from a long-term illness or a surgery or something that caused, this kind of issue. And we have seen them turn completely around in under 90 days. And so we have been nominated for several awards with the supplements, and we'll see what happens with those. But they've been so well received that we are now going to make them for people. And so I know. And when the vets see the dogs, the results with the dogs that were sick by our influencers, our customers, we get the email or the call from the vet saying, wow, we want to promote this. We want to use this with our clients and our dogs. So and when you look around, if you compare supplements, you will see, I urge everybody to do it. Look at the back of the package and, thanks to the FDA, everything in the bag has to be on the bag. So there's no smoke and mirrors. And you can compare yourself and see how incredibly masterful this supplement is. But all of us want to know if it works. And so we do have some of, whatever stories come back to us of it working. The videos and things, we put that on our Instagram, our Facebook. We share it with everyone, press releases. So what the goal is to really get this as, everywhere in the world and have it be the new way, the new way to wellness. Instead of maybe the ways that I think vets are trained, and this entire industry is really trained to treat illness after the fact. And with this approach, you are preventing illness and you're promoting wellness. But I think dogs could live much longer, 20, 30 years.
Really?
I have friends. Oh yeah. I have friends that lived on farms, and, that the dogs would eat what they eat, right? They'd eat the chicken and the beef, whatever they ate for dinner. That's what the dogs would eat. And they were incredibly healthy. And so is it true that, the food that is being offered to them is causing all these problems? Yeah, it is true. And it's heartbreaking. And no matter how you slice it, the science is there now. Over the last decade, so many folks stepped in to research this, and they've proven it. So it's not a new concept that it's been hurting dogs. But what's the alternative? And so you see companies like Just Food for Dogs and Fresh Pet and Farmer's Dog, and they came out with fresh food, which is a step in the right direction, but they're still adding the starches, which dogs absolutely do not need.
Why do they add the starch? Is that just because it makes
cheaper?
Just cheaper.
It's just cheaper.
Yeah.
It's a filler. And if ideally, if your dog if you have a dog that will eat vegetables and fruit, it's amazing, because those are forms of fiber that the dog does need. But they don't need it in the form of rice and potatoes and even sweet potatoes. It's not that those foods are bad. It's just that their little tummies are not designed to digest it. That's all it is. So you give them what they need, and then you give them the supplements, which, turn back the clock and move the dog's gut into a healthy state. And then, because it doesn't matter what you eat, if your gut is in complete disarray, it won't absorb anything. So you get the gut healthy with our supplements, and you continue that health. And then when the dog eats, it's pulling all that nourishment from the food. And that's the recipe for success and for a healthy dog. So for me to figure that out was not all that difficult. But it's like anything else, when you really care, when you really care about something, you're going to dive in and figure it out. And when I was holding Riley in my arms, and she was 1 pound, and her life was in my hands, and the vet did not have a solution. So something clicked. I just felt like I have to figure this out. And for me, it was by the grace of God that all the right people came across my path, and wonderful people. And now we have this fantastic company that's growing so quickly. But that's the commitment we made. So now that I've said all that, I want to just mention about Zeus. If I can dovetail into that, is that okay?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. So Zeus, I have rescued a few dogs, as many of us have, and I'm not out there looking to rescue dogs. Just something in my gut tells me, and I see a picture or I see a post, and I saw this post on Facebook, and it just broke my heart. And I will send those pictures.
Yeah, what did it say?
Well, it wasn't what it said. It was how he looked. I mean, you could see the fleas, you could see the debris, the dirt, the black skin, they didn't clean him up either, right? But when they put them in the shelter, they don't clean them.
So he wasn't a stray. He wasn't a stray. He was abandoned in a way.
A woman, she was going to church Sunday morning, and she saw this, she thought it was trash, and it was on the lawn of the church, and she walked over to it, and it was breathing, and it was Zeus. And she immediately, she knew where to take Zeus, which was the good thing. But I mean, he was barely breathing when I got there, and he had been there about 3 weeks and in that filthy state. And it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I know that this story is out there. I mean, this happens. This is going on right now. So it's not a one-off. It's just when you think about all of the dogs that are in need right now, it's overwhelming, and you want to save all of them. But we can only do one at a time until we come up with a solution, which I'm determined to do, that can provide better health care and a better process for helping, especially senior dogs. But anyway, they put him in where the cats were because he was so small. And I called and they said, well, we have 5 people ahead of you. And I figured, well, then somebody will adopt him. So I called Friday morning. It was, I called on Monday. I called again Friday. I said, did anybody? She said, no, nobody came. Of those 5 people, they made 5 appointments. Nobody showed up. So I drove over there and they gave me some gloves because he was such a mess. And she takes him out of the cage and puts him in my arms. And I was just bawling. I lost it. And I didn't let him go from that moment on. But I took him home. So I get him in the car and he's sitting in the front seat of the car. And right. And I immediately go and I get, some turkey and some water and just, the stuff I know will help him recover as quickly as possible. And his little eyes, when he finally opened his eyes bright, he had the most beautiful bright eyes. And it was astonishing to me. The life inside of him was just beaming. And he was a survivor. And the next day I take him to the vet, which thanks to this rescue group, which I'll get you the name of them, Eddie. Okay. So you can share it.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. They paid for the vet visit. So she took some x-rays and did a few things. And she said, well, he has a few broken bones. He has pneumonia. He has a trachea that is almost completely gone. And that the black skin, and he was just infested. I said, how long do you think he was on the street? And she said, well, I'm guessing, but, I see dogs like this, and I would say at least a year. So how did this, he weighed like 3 pounds. How did this dog survive?
What kind of dog was he again?
Why did nobody pick him up and take care of him if he's been on the street that long? I mean, the degree of the pain he must have been in, but he didn't miss a beat. He was so loving and sweet and even protective of me. I mean, so I took him to the outdoor mall where we go to here in it's called the Village in Woodland Hills.
Yep.
And he would walk, like he would go up to people. He'd walk into like the restaurant door, and everybody stopped, took pictures. But with my probiotic concoction that I gave Riley, I did the same thing with him, and the black skin was gone in a week. And that it was black. I mean, I took pictures of it because I've never seen that problem. The skin from the waist down was completely black, where what normally was pink, or like a normal white dog would be. He has white fur, white hair. So yeah, and his bravery is what got me, Eddie. I just kept thinking what he must have been through. How did he survive? How did he keep the faith? How did he keep going? And what he must have encountered, and why nobody stopped and helped him. I don't understand that. But of course, we're not supposed to understand it. We're just supposed to help. So I had him for about 3 weeks. And of course, I took him everywhere with me. And we had a lot of fun. But right around the three-week mark, the vet wanted to give him a flu shot. So she did. And when we got home and I went to pick him up, and he was like screaming in pain. And she said, "Oh, that's a normal reaction to the flu shot." And I thought, no, that can't be a normal reaction. It's not. No. So I couldn't even touch him for like 24 hours. I mean, I tried. So we just laid there. And so I just kept, every couple hours, I kept trying to pick him up. But he, the next day was better. And it was like 3 days after that. I took him to a lunch, and we were driving back home, and he started panting really heavily. And I didn't know what it was. Took him over to the vet, another vet that was near me. And they did a quick x-ray, and they said, yeah, his trachea is gone. So there's not a whole lot we can do for that. And trachea collapse, as we know, that happens to a lot of small dog breeds. Yeah. Right. And so I just took him home, and he just died looking right at me in my eyes. And I will never, ever, ever, for the rest of my life, I will never forget Zeus. And I wish I had our supplements. I wish I had the keys to bring him back to health. And, we know our dogs are not going to live forever. We know that, but we can give them a great life while they're here. And the love that dog shared with me was palpable. It was, I don't think I ever felt anything like it. And maybe it was a mixture of, gratitude and fear and everything that his little soul was feeling. But boy, he communicated it and was so at peace when I would hold him. And so I know when I think of all the people that go through this, and when their dog passes, or the dog gets, cancer, or so many other illnesses, and what the cause might be. And I'm not going to say might anymore. We know what the cause is. Of course, not all illness, but, a majority of it. And we know it's preventable with the proper nutrition. That to me felt like, that's a life worth living if we can do this. And having it dovetail into, the supplements for people has been, I guess, it's a lifelong dream for most of the team that I work with, but my partners especially, and Dr. Greg, he has always wanted to do this. So with the formulas that we have, they're all human grade ingredients for the supplements. It's all tested on people. So we know it works. These in particular have been tested for pet and for people. But right now we're tweaking the formulas so we can release them for people. And we're going to come out with about 6 different formulas that target different health benefits. And right now we have the mobility and immunity formulas for the dogs, and we will, of course, expand into those. We're making a calming formula, and then a longevity formula with ashwagandha and ashwagandha, which I think people know about that now, what those are, and glutathione and all kinds of yummy things that have been proven time and time again to work and to heal. But the core of all of this is the biotics. And I just want to say, if there's folks out there that kind of love to geek out on this, like I do, if you go to Juicia or Google Scholar or any of those websites, and you search biotics in cancer treatment or cancer prevention, you will see the 100,000 plus studies that have been done on this from around the world. And it's remarkable to know that there are these solutions. They are being tested. There is proof that it works on some level in certain ways. So it's an alternative to, big pharma and pharma solutions that works. So the key is to manufacture it in a way that's consistent and safe, and continue to test, which is the next phase of what we're going to do. We'll be testing the products and doing the full on, double-blind placebo tests, which is the gold standard of testing, right? And just adding to the plethora of data out there about this with our supplements. And Eddie, that's why I'm so excited to be on your show, because when you and I talked about this so long ago, and what a dog inspires is what I wanted. I was hoping that we could have a forum like this with someone, with a leader like you, who is so gracious and kind and smart, and is able to, give people that platform and, and facilitate it and, pull it out of them with everything you do. Is just amazing. But that's where I think the mystery of the dog, what dogs do to heal us and how we help them. I don't know who's helping who more, but I know.
Feels like they help us more than I help them, if I'm being honest.
I think, they make us better people.
They do.
Right? They teach. And when you know that unconditional love is there, and they're not only capable of it, but it's always there.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be like that. I want to be able to forgive and forget and move on.
Yeah.
And
do you ever,
right?
I mean, do you ever like sit on Instagram sometimes? Because this is what I do. And this relates to what you're saying. There's so many videos online of just pets in general. I imagine your pet does the same thing too. Like, just by the way they look at you, there is this unique, almost human way, but it's not human. Obviously, it's a dog or a pet or any kind of animal, right? But it's just, to me, it always warms my heart whenever I see a dog who clearly loves its owner, just looking at them, just wagging their tail. And, to us, we deal with a lot of things every single day, but then you see a dog just looking at you, you pet its head, or you do something that your pet loves, and it is just ecstatic, and it explodes with love in its own unique way. And like you were mentioning, there is nothing like it. I don't know how to describe it. Unconditional love, I guess, is the best way to describe it. I mean, that's truly probably the closest that I've ever gotten to unconditional love is from my dog, and to me, it's amazing that we can experience that, with a pet that we love, and to be able to take care of them and make sure they can live as long as possible is the best thing you can do. Yeah.
It's like an honor. It's an honor. It's a privilege. It's a stewardship that we should take seriously, and it's different with kids. It's so different. Kids are a miracle, but they're designed to grow up and become an adult,
Yeah.
And it's a different journey. And dogs are like continuously 2 years old,
That's true. Yeah. They stay at that, you're right.
Right. And their vulnerability is, when you think about, I think about Riley, and she's so tiny, and if she was out in the wild, she'd make a great appetizer for those coyotes, right? But they come hanging around all the time. And it's just the way the world works. But to keep her safe and to keep her healthy, and I do see that love in her eyes, like you said, that floors me. It takes my breath away and you see it. And I'm so glad you mentioned it, because people do see it. And it's not something we're not acknowledging. It's like, you can see it, you can feel it, it's there, it's love. And I want to work on, I want to share this really quick. They now have data that shows that dogs basically can make like a 3D map in their mind of wherever a food source is, or their toy, or whatever it is they want. And they've done so much testing with it. Like a dog can find a piece, their favorite treat, let's say, like our treats, and you can wrap it in foil and in a bag and put it at the bottom of a pool, and the dog will find it.
Really?
Yes. And in all of that testing, they discovered that they make a 3D map, they make a visual in their head of the terrain, right? And it's all done through sense. So I think if we can work on, quantifying and calculating and articulating that sense, how that process works, that's as close as we can get to knowing what they're thinking and feeling.
If I can just, because this is fascinating to me. I think we were starting to talk about this a while ago, but we didn't get that deep into it. So now's the time. I'm definitely curious because we all know that dogs have a superpower with their noses. We know that they can smell, depending on the breed too, they can smell for miles, right? But this idea of a 3D map, I guess my question would be, is it mainly just smells? But because they can smell everything, and I know that they can, actually, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I know that they can basically smell individual ingredients in different things. Like that's how accurate their smell can be. So is this 3D map completely made out of smells, or is it also the hearing?
Let me pop this in your brilliant brain, because you're going to love this. They smell fear. They smell anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And and not all breeds can do this, but when you have a service dog that can do this, they can smell, and it is through their sense of scent. But the amygdala and the part of their brain that processes the scent is so much more advanced. I mean, by trillions and trillions of cells, right? Than ours is. So they smell it, and let's say we would call it, we sense it, or you look at somebody's face and they're upset or they're scared or they're sick. Like we do it visually. That's how they do it with their nose, but it's the same kind of process. Okay. They know it as acutely, even better than we do. So like if somebody has epilepsy, they can sense when the attack is coming on. Okay.
Really?
And that's done through the nose. So if you think of that, how do you can quantify the fear, and how are they processing that? What does it mean to them? And what becomes actionable about that? So when you can train a dog to facilitate if you have epilepsy, so when they do, when that thing is triggered and they smell it, what do they do? And that's why they're so miraculous, because they can channel all of that energy and all of that input into helping the person that they care about. Now, right there's the bridge right there that, they may know it, they may sense it and smell it, but what do they do about it? And that the fact that a dog will stop what it's doing, it will suspend its own functionality, its own desires, and it will go and help its owner.
That is so beautiful. Oh my God.
Right?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. So if we could map that and, get a really good software program going to put all that data in there, we would be able to see what they're thinking and feeling and through their scent. And I know it will capture the love. I know it. I just know it, because that's the predominant force in their lives. That's what they are built to please. They want to make their owner happy, right?
Well, that's a curiosity I've always had, because, I'm not an animal expert, but I will say, I think out of many, many animals that I've watched or seen in my life, whether going to the zoo or just, watching documentaries, it does seem like dogs are outliers in this bond that we've had, human and canine. Now, you could argue it's evolution. You can argue that, we did train them a long, long time ago, and they've been domesticated. And and this is another sidestep here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe dogs aren't necessarily wolves. I know they're relatives of wolves, but I think the idea that a wolf became a dog, I'm not sure if that's correct. But regardless of that, right, the idea is that, I mean, but like the reality is dogs in general, you can ask the average person, and I think the average person would agree. Dogs in general are sort of designed to partner with humans in this interesting, beautiful way. Now, can other animals partner? Absolutely. I mean, you see it all the time. You see trainers. I mean, there's videos of people who go to Africa and they have amazing bonds with lions, for example, right? Like it's possible. But
Sure.
now you could argue that maybe dogs are more common, so therefore we have this bond. But regardless of that, I think the average person would agree that there is something special between dogs and humans. And I believe we were going this route.
Yeah.
Do we know why that is? And is that unconditional love part of it? Is that something that came out of nowhere? I don't know. But there is this curiosity I have of why is it that us humans can bond with dogs? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, Eddie, you know me. I always go back to the original designer of our world. And there's so many, T-shirts and wall plaques that say it. But, I think they're a gift from God for us. And, when you go in the Bible and you think about the relationship between, man and animal, and you think of it from a scientific perspective, you can think of it as through as many lenses as you like. But what you get down to is what you said so beautifully, is that the fact that they will turn that love and that care into loyalty, protection, service. They will suspend their own needs for you. And I don't know another animal that does that. I don't.
I mean, cats don't.
I know. No, you can have cats. Well, right? They don't. I love cats. I
love cats. Yeah,
definitely allergic, but so I can't have them. But if I wasn't, I would have 25 cats. They're fascinating to me, and they love in a different way. They show you love in a totally different way. But going back to the wolf idea, whatever side of evolution folks are on, I think evolution truly, I mean, you can't deny that there's some form of evolution, because things are always changing. So,
yeah,
whether it's in the way you want it or not, with every generation and every new child, there's unique things that come about, but, a human is a human is a human. So you may have a point there. It may have been with crossbreeding, that we got into the dog world. And this goes way back, right? Centuries of breeding. So in so many countries, especially England. So, back then, the royals and the folks that did do breeding would breed for specific purposes, for protection, for loyalty, they were looking for characteristics. But that's the whole point, is that no matter how much you train, I could train a bird all day long, but it's not going to be able to, right? The dogs have an innate ability that is trainable, yes, but they come fully equipped. So
yeah,
right, and that love, it is unique, and I think I don't have all the answers. I wish I know I'll have them when I head up to heaven, but I think that they are unique in the animal world.
Yeah.
And they are a gift for us. So it's really if we care to, and the folks who care to and have the time and inclination to do so, should honor that and, help these amazing animals live their best lives. And not, I can't
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree.
We can't save every dog. But I want to. I want to try. I want to stop. A lot of, kill shelters have got to stop. We've got to end those. There's many countries, like Norway, the Netherlands, that have stopped completely spaying and neutering because they feel it's cruel and inhumane kind of punishment for an animal.
Yeah.
So
Which I agree with.
you know,
I 100% agree. Yeah.
yeah, I do. And there's a lot of folks, in these are the third rail issues. I have to say, these are hot button issues for a lot of people. So but it's good that we talk about it. We've got to get it, out and put it on the table and talk about it. And
Can I ask, if you don't mind me asking, I know that the idea behind kill shelters or shelters in general is that they're trying to control the pet population. And the only reason why I know this is because of The Price is Right. If you remember, Bob, I forgot his last name, but Bob Barker, yeah, at the end of every episode, he would always just be like, help control the pet population, keep your pets spaded or neutered, and then good night or good day, whatever. But I remember
that's cool.
It was his saying, like at the end of the episode, and not to get into this can of worms, right? I mean, that was a great show. I loved Price is Right.
Let's get into the worms.
Let's get into it, because again, I grew up watching that show with my parents, and it's not like I looked into it as a child, right? But I think that phrase stayed with me, and then at some point in my life, I don't know if it was in school or maybe I saw it in a commercial, but at some point I came to the understanding that the pet population, specifically for dogs, not necessarily was out of control, but that we were keeping them in control. And then if that a dog couldn't find a home, it needs to be put down, right? Or otherwise it'd become a stray and maybe wreak havoc. I don't know. Now dogs are, they can be, to some extent, they have sharp teeth, so I'm sure they can be dangerous. So my point here is, without getting too distracted, is there any truth to that, in your opinion? Like, are they actually controlling a problem that could exist with pets? Or like if dogs got out of control and there was just tons of them, could they cause issues? Now, my argument would be no, because I love dogs, as you can tell, but I've never looked at the science. I don't know the statistics. I don't even know if it's true. I'm curious to hear what you think.
Well, number one, I have had this discussion with folks who have really come at me with that agenda. Okay. And they're stern advocates of spaying and neutering. And I would say to them, the dogs are on the end of my leash, right? Mm-hmm. They're never going to be anywhere else. They're going to be with me 24/7, right? Pretty much. And if they're not, they're going to be in good care with, a friend or family or someone that will care for them and protect them. So there's no way that my dogs are going to get pregnant without us knowing about it. Okay. So if we want to prevent a pregnancy, we certainly can, because they're under my control. Okay. And the response I would get is, but what about when they're not in your control? And what about this? And what about that? I'm like, well, but they never will not be in my control. And pets are so domesticated these days. And there's so many ways to care for your pet when you go on vacation. And now people are taking the dog on vacation. So it's a different world now, I think. The dog especially has, risen up to family member status.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm so happy that's the case.
Yeah. And a couple of stats really are fascinating. There are the last estimate, and you can Google this, because there's stats all over the place. So basically, I think the consensus is there's about 90 million dogs in the US, and there's about 400 million globally. But let's stick with the US, 90 million. And then when you look at the stats for children under 18, it's about 72 million.
There are more dogs than teens.
There's more dogs than children. Now, we know the millennials, at least statistically, have been favoring pets over children. But I've seen that blown up too, where, they get to a certain age and they decide, okay, now I want kids. So I don't think we'll ever stop having children. But that says a lot that there's more dogs than kids in this country, at least. So what does that mean? if you go back, there's a grid that I found. Again, this is all Googleable, but it went back to like the 70s and how many dogs were killed in the US in the 70s versus today. And I mean, it was hundreds of thousands back then. And now it's much, much, much less, maybe an eighth of that, right? So we've been moving in the right direction for several decades. But to me, it comes down to a philosophy and the moral compass. If when we step in and think that a dog should be killed for no reason, that's concerning to me. It's life and it's precious, and because that trains us and the generations that are watching this and watching us make decisions that life is not precious enough to save. So we're just going to kill it because it's been here 7 days. Even our governor, the governor of California, came out with legislation to end kill shelters. So there's a lot of movement toward it. And I think that's, to me, it's just, we're a community, we're family, we're a worldwide family of dog lovers, if you will. And to keep that life precious and sacred, the last thing you want to do is kill it. The second to last thing you want to do is spay or neuter it. And there's a lot of studies done out of many countries that proves that their life is inexorably diminished by that process. It may be a little less daunting for boy dogs than for girl dogs, and it depends on how they do it. But, they have hormones just like we do, and they have, they go in cycles, and Riley is not fixed, and she has her cycles, and you see nature play out, right? With Ace and Riley every 6 months. Right. And it drives behavior, but it also drives their mental health, their cognitive health, their heart health. It's part of how they were made. So who are we to interfere with that? Some folks that are on the other side say, well, it might help prevent illnesses. I don't understand. The science does not support that, reducing or removing the dog's hormonal capacity can be in any way beneficial at all. At all. So I don't agree with this, I guess, the battle cry. I feel like you do that. It's not our place. It's not our place to kill them or alter them.
How old is this battle cry, by the way? I'm curious because I don't imagine that. I mean, I again, I've never looked into this before, but now I'm curious. Was this something we've always done? Is this something that kind of became a thing in the 70s or 60s? And then why was it a thing? I know you just mentioned disease. I'm wondering what kind of diseases we're trying to prevent. But do you know, like, is this, I don't imagine we've always done this. How old is this idea that we needed to keep the pet population, not the pet, but like the dog population down?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I
don't know if we know. I'm curious.
Well, it really, as if you look historically, it really aligns with a philosophy or a culture. You look around the world at how dogs are treated around the world, right? And was it Gandhi who said, right? It was Gandhi's quote, basically a country that cares for its animals, right? That's the most favored state of being. But it tells you everything about the countrymen. So there's always been this control issue around it. So So I think the 60s and 70s saw, I believe that was the first time, birth control came in, and this kind of idea of, controlling the population, controlling pregnancies in a way that they didn't have before. There's always been that desire to control pregnancy, and plan your family and kind of have control over it when you want to have your children. So, but what came with that was, a lot of misuse, a lot of reckless behavior. And so I think the philosophy of, that a life is disposable in any way, shape, or form. I think we saw a huge surge of that, in the last century, throughout the century. But I think we're seeing the pendulum swing back again in a big way right now. I think I love all the millennials that I know. They're remarkable. Like you, Eddie. They're remarkable. They're passionate. They're creative. You have been able to employ your creativity in such powerful ways. And you want what's good and right in the world. And that's what I see with this new generation. And I have complete faith in that. And that's why they're embracing the dog, I think. That's why they're making it as part of the family, because they're seeing that dog the way it should be seen. It with all the beauty and love in their heart. They're appreciating it. And the more we do that with our dogs, the more we're going to do it with each other. And the better the world's going to become. And maybe I'm a Pollyanna. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm living in a bubble of hope. But I'd rather live there. I'd rather live there and promote the beauty and the health and wellness and the joy and what the possibilities of life, the possibilities that come about with these relationships. And I think TikTok has been fantastic.
It's incredible. I've wasted so many hours of my life just watching so many dog videos. I love it. I mean, just animal videos in general. I mean, I love it.
2:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. I feel like I know way more about animals. I've learned way more about animals over the past year or two of me just watching Instagram and TikTok than I ever did as a kid. Now, I am a very curious person. I've watched tons of documentaries, but there is a difference of sitting down and watching something educational, like a documentary, versus just scrolling and just watching a 30-second clip of a bird in its natural habitat, or a dog or a lion. Yeah,
right?
it feels it feels more real. Yeah,
it's real, and it's like, some of them are funny, some are scary, some are just absolute cuteness overload. And then you have those, like when the dog fights off the bear.
Yeah.
These really epic moments. But there's a reason that the number one videos on YouTube, on TikTok, on Insta, you name it, it's about a dog running or a dog playing or a dog doing something. We're connecting with them, and we value them and we cherish them. And that's all good. And I think, people that just want to step in the way of that or diminish their value, I think that day is done. I think that day is in the rearview mirror.
I agree.
And I hope that day will be in the rearview mirror for us too. I know there's people will always say, I love dogs, but I hate people. I don't feel that way. I love dogs and I love people. I have such faith in people. And my dad, that was my dad. My dad, his parents were from Greece. He was born on the way over here. He had such faith in this country and in the people, the American people. He said, never underestimate them. Never. They're remarkable. They're miraculous. And he really, he saw it from that lens, right? I mean, he would take a piece of fruit from the tree, the lemon from the lemon tree that we planted, and he'd hold the lemon and he'd pull it apart with his thumbs, right? And he'd go, look how beautiful look what God made. Look how beautiful this is. That was my dad, right? So it's right. And that feeling of cherishing, everything that you have access to, even your problems, even illnesses, it's all part of the journey. But we can choose. We can choose to be part of the solution. We can choose to stand for good and right and getting our dogs and ourselves healthy. Eddie, that's what I brought it down to. And I think COVID was a very scary moment for all of us. And whether, there's a lot of truth to still come out about that, but regardless, our immune systems, when our immune systems are functioning properly and they're nourished, it can fight off all illness. And yes, we have expiration dates for sure, but the quality of life while we're here, that's the immune system. And there's so many things that we're subjected to in our environment that hurt our immune system. So that's when I got real serious about this and focusing on the immune system and how can we make it stronger? How can we, right? And when your mind, body, and soul are strong, you're not going to fall for just anything. You're not going to be in a weakened state. And that's what the GMO foods and all of, you name it, weed killers and all the things that have entered into our world. We have to fight back, and our bodies can fight back. Our bodies are miraculous wells of wellness. They can heal. They can overcome. But it requires the right things that you put in your body. So that's what we're focusing on. But it all started.
I love that you're so passionate about just like the fitness and just the wellness of pets. It's amazing.
Well, when you see that dog that you love so much, at close to death versus, running around with her boyfriend, it becomes everything. But us too, we've all had people that have been sick and passed, had cancer. I had, dozens of family members pass away from cancer, but I had a big family, the extended family, the cousins and the aunts and uncles. And I saw that all play out, in a very short time. And it was heartbreaking, and it's part of life, but let's, that was the message that was loud and clear to me. Let's make it so that the next generations have solutions that didn't exist, that we brought to the table, and then they'll improve upon them, and so on, until we finally get to a point, where we're living the way we should. And we've cut out all the yucky stuff, and we've delivered and created the things that will make us strong and healthy and happy. And if it does begin with dogs, I can foresee the time when, it's about the dog and you being, working out together and yoga. We're doing that now, right? It's all, we're getting fit with our dogs, but we need to incorporate them even more. They should be able to go on planes. We should configure planes so the dogs, so it looks like a dog park inside.
Oh, you know what?
Right?
That's probably in the horizon. I never thought about it that way, but I can totally see it.
It's part of our plan, the Happy Tails big picture. I want pup strut and play zones. I want hotels, everything geared to, the family, which includes the dog. But right. And we can have all those services for dogs, but they need to come out of that. We need to come out of that old thinking. And sometimes that's generational. It just has to happen over time. But
like we discussed, I think we're coming out of it already, like you mentioned, and I do think we are in a place where we do see their value more. We do find them to be part of the family, which I know that with my dog, I definitely did. And I think I was telling you this over the phone just a couple of days ago. But for those of you who might not know, I also just lost my family dog a couple days ago. As of recording of this, it was a couple of days ago. Which, Cerberus was my personal dog, which I lost last year. But our family dog just passed a couple days ago. And man, it's never easy. I mean,
Tell us about him. Tell us about him.
Well, his name was it's a Spanish name, right? And his name was Chispito, which basically means Sparky in Spanish.
Okay.
And he was a lab retriever mix with a little bit of German Shepherd, but you wouldn't be able to tell that he was part German Shepherd without like taking the DNA test. But he was an absolute joy and was a dog that I didn't grow up with him necessarily because I was already in college by the time that my parents got him. But that was like 14 years ago. And, I saw him grow up. I saw him go from a puppy to being this very bratty dog. But what was interesting about him, and this is actually something that is so fascinating to me about pets in general, but dogs particularly. I know this seems like it's like a dog podcast, but it's not. It's very much like an animal podcast. But I love dogs, and I'm so close to them. That's where I wanted to start. The thing about dogs that fascinates me is just how unique their personalities can get, and how much that can match with the family that they're with. And I know we were talking about their unconditional love. We were talking about their 3D map that they have in their brain, and I'm starting to just think of them even like of a higher pedigree now after talking with you.
Good. I'm so glad.
I mean, what's curious to me is just, Chispo was so unique, but he matched my family perfectly well to what they needed. My parents were the ones that took care of it. My parents are a little older; they're close to 70, and so Chispo was incredibly, incredibly energetic, but he also was very independent. He sort of let my parents do their thing. He didn't really need a lot of taking care of. My parents would leave. They would travel, and they would, fill up his bowl with food, and he would ration it. It's actually kind of funny because he was never when he was a puppy, he would eat a lot. But as my parents started traveling more, my mom would tell me, oh, yeah, we just leave him a giant bowl full of food, and we'll be gone for like a long weekend. He'll come back, and he would parse his food out. Like he would take it out of his bowl. He would make little piles. Anyways, that is to say, like,
that's amazing.
And there's so many other things that he did that were very unique to my family that I've never heard of other pets doing. And I'm sure every family is the exact same way. Everybody who has a dog, who has a pet, are going to share stories, hopefully on this podcast, about how their pet emulates them, how it was unique to them, and it serviced them in many unique ways. I'm generally curious your thoughts on where that comes from, because I know we were talking about dogs do have this ability to kind of step aside from themselves when they sense fear or they sense that we need them. They will absolutely be there. I've never met I never met or heard of a dog that's never done that. So is that, what is that? I guess that's what I'm curious about is, and maybe it helps to talk about Riley a little bit too there, about, in your perspective, how has Riley emulated you and adapted to your family in ways that you don't see other dogs do, if that makes sense?
You hit on something really important, Eddie. I've seen dogs trained to, my ex brother-in-law was a canine officer. And then the head of the SWAT team, right? I so admired him for that. And, they can train the dogs to do a lot of things, right? And you can also, this is my personal belief that, the reason that pit bulls can be, so damaged where they can attack, where you can train them to attack, and they put them in those horrible positions, right? I don't even know what they're called, but
and I hate that they have such a bad name to them because pit bulls are so sweet.
They are, and that's where I was going, is that they're so sensitive, and they have such a refined temperament, and they're so sweet. Like, they would die for you. That's how deep their love can be. And when you mistreat a dog, that's when you get the converse reaction. And even at that, like, you can mistreat them so much, and they'll still try to come back to the love. So yeah, I think, I've never yelled at my dogs, ever.
That's good.
I had a really brilliant trainer who's Allison. She's our chief canine training officer. And we created all of our training programs around her that are on the website. And we're going to be doing a lot with those in the future. But she was just a mountain of internal strength and kindness. So she would, and almost infinite patience. So she taught me how to have patience with the dog's process. And sometimes it took minutes, hours, days to break through something. Like Riley would, when I put the harness on her, she didn't move. And she just froze because she'd never experienced it, right? And she's so sensitive and so loving that that's how she reacts, by just kind of not bewilderment, just frozen. And it took 3 training sessions with Allison for Riley to break through that fear or that discomfort. And Allison just stood right by her, right? And kept trying, kept coming back and trying to ask her to go forward. And 3 1.5-hour sessions. And when she finally broke through in the middle of that 3rd session, she ran down the hallway. She just took off. It was so cute. But if I had pulled her, if I had yelled at her, think of all the other things you would do if you were in a hurry to get that dog just to walk on leash, right?
Yeah.
If I had done anything else, she would have shut down. And that's, not every breed is that sensitive, but these dogs are. And that's what's astonishing. So you hit the nail on the head. If you're kind to them, if you're loving and patient, and you understand them, and we call it learning to speak dog, then they feel heard and understood and safe. So then the communication expands and gets bigger and bigger between the two of you. So where it's now, I know exactly what they need. They can just look at me and I know what they want. And I never thought I could have that with a dog. I never thought it was possible. But I listened to Allison. She taught me so much. And she made me, I think, with her training me, I think I became a better person, a more patient person with other people's processes. And while we think we are that way, we are what we are. But if you're willing to be self-reflective and willing to look at it through, I wasn't looking at it through, raising a child or being a partner or any of that. I was looking at it through that lens of helping the dog. And when I did that, all the love came out, right? So I was willing, I'm more than willing to do it, to follow her direction, because I knew she was right. And it was from a loving place. And the dog knows it, because they can smell love just as much as they can smell every other emotion we have. So when you walk up to them and you love them and hold them, they know it and they will absorb it. And I think, here's my okay, all the physicists out there. I think string theory has got to be proven at some point. I think our math, the quantum physics ideology.
Remind me again. I'm so sorry. Remind me again what string theory is. That everything's connected to some degree, right?
It's the idea that everything's connected. It goes much deeper than that. But basically, everything is connected. So every movement I make, every word you say, it impacts something somewhere in the universe, right? But it flows from you. And when you think about energy, right, and love, and you know, when someone says, you know, prove it, you say, how do you prove love? Can you prove you love your father? Can you prove you love your mother? Right? Prove love. Try it. So that, if you just take love in its essence, you know you feel it, and you know the degrees to which you feel it.
Yeah.
But we haven't yet, math and science hasn't yet been able to clearly articulate how that love reaches the object of your affection. So, and when they do that, we will be able to tangibly see, if you could see love, right? If you could see it and make it tangible, you would see someone walking down the street emanating all of that loving energy, right? And you would see an angry person, right? And you would see that energy. So the dog sees all that. They don't see it with their eyes, they see it with their nose. And if you think of it that way, like a cartoon, like an angry person walking, when we're want to walk and there's someone, an angry person walking by, my dogs, it's the funniest reaction. But they will be the first to come right next to me to protect me. And it's fascinating, right? But that's what they're seeing. So I think we have a long way. String theory, I think, is the closest, at least big picture wise, to proving this, how the energy all connects and the ways in which it connects every person, every idea. It's, you know, it's all there, but the math we need the math to come up. And I think the field of photonics will certainly do that. It should. Maybe it's a precursor to it, but the math.
Photonics is study of energy, I think, or no?
Light.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Photons. That makes sense.
Yeah. Photon. Yeah. You got to check into that fascinating work being done there. But so the science is getting there, but it has a long way to go. And I think they finally decided to agree that, you know, quantum physics is a little bit broken. But, you know, there's foundational ideas in there that are wonderful, but we have a long way to go. So when we get there and we can, and that's what I think this could do, if we could, you know, tangibly see what the dog sees and feels. Oh boy. And we, you know, we could do that for ourselves too. And that will be lovely. Maybe Neuralink, maybe Elon Musk is onto something with that. Who knows?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm so curious to feel what it's like to smell something like a dog does. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is so remarkable. I always think about Homeward Bound. I imagine you've seen that movie. I feel like
I haven't.
You've never seen Homeward Bound.
No.
Oh, okay. You would love it. It's a classic film. I mean, it's old. So it's got its like cheesy moments. I haven't seen it in a minute, but I remember as a kid, I watched it.
Cry?
I think you might, you know, I haven't seen it in a while, but as a kid, I watched it many, many times. And as a kid, it would make me feel a little sad. I don't think none of the pets get hurt or anything, but it's the moment where they get lost and they have some obstacles to face that I used to get sad as a kid. So the premise is basically that, if I remember correctly, a family moves or they go on vacation or something. And so their pets, which is a yellow lab, a cat, and I forget the other dog. But anyways, it's a trio, I think. And they get lost and they kind of go on an adventure to find their way back home. That's the idea. And they go through all these things, right? I think at a certain point they even fight a bear or they like run away from a bear. But the idea is that they can find their way back home. And I believe that is very much true still, right? I think dogs in general, I think once I heard that they have like a 3-mile radius that they can sort of track themselves back home. If they ever get lost, they can sort of smell the way back. But that's as far as I would hear. I would just hear that it was their smell, that they could just somehow smell where you were at. And that's as far as it got. But from the sounds of what you're saying, it goes back to that 3D map. It goes back to that, the fact that they can smell things that we honestly can't even imagine, like fear. So,
yeah.
I don't even know. To be honest, I lost my train of thought. Like, I don't even know what my question was.
I think it's, you know, Eddie, it's all good with you. I swear. It's just so much fun. But yeah, I think the mapping of a source of food. Okay, there's that. But we know they're mapping all the rest. and it becomes a priority, right? So if you're going to hurt the dog, it's going to try to avoid you. If you love the dog and make it safe and happy, it's going to seek you out. So I think just like us, our brains are pliable. Thanks to neurogenesis, we know that our brains are constantly regenerating, which 20, 30 years ago, that was a myth. And we know that is possible now. So, but it's also like if you're mistreated over and over and over again, the parts of your brain, like the amygdala, the PTSD, all of, our brains and our minds and our souls are all connected, but it changes us. It changes us. And, if I'm beaten, every day for 10 years and starved and put in a camp, like the Uyghur Muslims are in China and so many other folks, what happens to you and what's the purpose? So you change biochemically, your brain changes, and you can heal, but we just don't have that much time with dogs. So you don't have 40, 50 years to try to heal. So, but they're healing, and everything they do is faster. So I shouldn't say faster, it's accelerated in comparison to us. So, but the love, if you love the dog and it loves you back, like we see, then the parts of its brain, mind, body, soul that will expand with that love, right? It diminishes all the other stuff, and that part of the brain expands and gets more refined. And believe it or not, the sense of smell that is promoted by that feeling. So, you can be a mile away downwind, and the dog knows your scent. It knows you're coming. It will find you, and that's powerful. To know that we have such a unique scent, right? That your dog knows it's you. It could be around 1 million people, and it would find you.
That is so true.
Right?
I just, what's funny? It's kind of blowing my mind because I'm thinking about it right now, right? And like Cerberus, my old dog, I know that he can pick me out from a crowd, but when I really boil it down to, I guess, just, biology, I'm mostly just meat, right? But I imagine I smell, theoretically speaking, my skin probably smells like any other guy's skin, right? And so it really, it opens up this, I don't know, group of questions of like,
it's as much about your thoughts and your energy too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
They're smelling all of that. So they create a different signature for you than is just, biochemical smell. It's an emotional sense. And when you think about that, like when I was studying all of this and researching all of it, I thought, oh my God, I got to be happy when I'm around my dogs, right? Like genuinely happy, because they're going to say the worst thing for dogs. I saw this on some show, like with a dog psychic. I don't know if I believe in all that, but someday maybe we'll prove that too. But she was saying that dogs, the worst feeling they have is when we're annoyed with them.
Oh.
And I thought, well, hey, that works for me too. I don't like when somebody is annoyed with me.
Yeah.
And I can be very annoying. So when I want to be.
We all can be annoying. We're all annoying.
We all can. Yeah. I mean, right? Under the certain circuit. So if the dog is that acutely aware and sensitive to my emotional state of being, then I got to be responsible for that. And not just, and it doesn't just stop there. We're just thinking of it now through the dog's perspective, but let's think about family members and friends and kids and colleagues. And, we all have that same ability, right?
Yeah.
So if you start, controlling your behavior or realizing that, you're part of this, you're creating an ecosystem around you 24/7. And the dog is just much more hyper aware of it. So yeah, let's do it for the sake of your dog. but then everybody else will benefit too, right?
Yeah.
Everyone in your world. But that's why if we can figure this out and see it and tangibly see it, then we'll have proof. We will have absolute proof that this is happening. And
Okay.
and how and then what do they do with it? And that was the other part. They choose to give back to us when they understand. If you're sick, they'll come and comfort you. If you're scared, they'll come and protect you. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
What does Riley do when you feel? I mean, I'm not sure if you feel scared often, but what does she do whenever you feel uneasy, uncomfortable? I imagine she probably comes running to you.
They both do the same thing. They want to jump on the bed, and Ace likes to just jump. He puts his paws on my shoulders, and kind of lays on top of me, whether it's directly on top of me or from the side. And he has to lick my mouth. He loves my mouth. And then now I keep it close. Yes, let's not get grossed out, but okay. And Riley loves my nose. Always has. The nose is her thing. But if I'm ever when I've had my times, especially when I'm sick, they want to be right next to me. They make a sandwich out of me, and then they'll take turns.
That's so cute.
They come check me out. Riley will kiss my whole face. Okay, she'll lick my eyes, and she's grooming. She's taking care. And Ace just goes for the jugular. He gets what he wants, and then he's done, and then he lays next to me. So they have their own love language, I would call it, we all have, but and they love when I'm happy. I mean, they dance, they pounce, they play. I've seen it. It's so real to me now that I can't even imagine going back in time when I didn't understand all this or I wasn't aware of it,
Yeah.
That bringing that awareness to is so important. And that we're going to do that with some ebooks that will accompany the training. But there's a lot of data on the emotional life of dogs now that, is out there, and study after study that, and it's not, studies are good. And from a scientific perspective, you need them, but what your heart's telling you too. So I think people, right. If you just listen to your heart and your gut and you're kind and loving and, you just hold off on all the nervous or crazy behavior when you're around your dogs, right?
I mean, I've never seen a dog upset around happy people in general. Even if the dog is pretty mellow, even if the dog is usually relaxed, that's probably as far as they go. They usually just relax when they're around happy people. I've never seen it.
And that brings us back to your question of, does the dog assimilate, how does the dog assimilate with family?
Yeah.
Because you saw that with your dog and your family. So they will definitely give, that's it. They give you what you need, what they think you need, and their job. Ace is very serious about his job. So when we go to sleep, Riley has to sleep on the bed and Ace has to sleep on the floor between the bed and the door. And that's his job. He feels like he's protecting us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he is very serious about it. He will not falter.
So I'm curious about something. I'm curious about this because your dogs are very lucky to have you because you are definitely a joy to be around and you care so much about life and people. If this podcast episode isn't obvious, I think everyone will know after this how much you actually love and care for the well-being of people. Not to bring up my dog, because this is about you, but it always relates back to my experience as well. And because you care so much for Syrup, I think you and I can relate on that. Syrup was such a special case where, as you know, he suffered from severe anxiety for some unfortunate circumstances that happened before he was with us. And it's something that, unfortunately, he carried for the rest of his life that we had to learn to manage. It wasn't even something that was, at least from our experience at the time, we didn't know how to train him out of it. We did get him training, and we did manage to create an environment that was safe for him and he was able to function in that environment. But
And you really did.
if you had
I
to
have to say, yeah, I saw you do that, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful.
thank you. I mean, it wasn't even out of the question. It was a labor of I had to do it because I loved them so much. But I guess my question is, because I can go really deep into that. But I guess my question is, we're talking here about how hyper aware dogs are, and I'm barely realizing that now in our conversation right now. I'm starting to learn how much more aware they are. My whole life, I've seen them as these tiny little children who are just like happy all the time and they just bounce around. And then sometimes, occasionally, they'll be aggressive, right? There's either or. But I'm starting to recognize that there's more than meets the eye. And that tends to be the case with many things in life, right? But at least with dogs, they clearly have more going on that I didn't know about. So it makes me think about Syrup, he being anxious and being afraid of the world. He wasn't afraid of the world when we were around. I had to take charge. We had to take charge and show him, hey, you're safe with us. But without us in the picture, he was pretty much he felt like the world was going to destroy him because of what was done to him as a puppy. So I guess my question is, I guess maybe there isn't really a question, but we're talking about really good experiences with dogs. Is that something that can be changed, in your opinion, when a dog is feeling that down? I mean, and we were talking about the good stuff, the good side. So I'm sort of flipping it a little bit. And when we talk about dogs who have been hurt, dogs who, fighting dogs, for example, those dogs have been bred from a while to just kill in general. But now knowing that they emulate, that they relate to what we feel, would you argue that now these dogs have just been conditioned to hate all the emotions that they feel? I mean, I don't even know what I'm asking, but it's more about I got what is going on in their head, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well,
in your opinion.
When I got Ace, Ace had been at that place where I got him for a month. And he was an absolute nervous wreck.
Yeah.
If I tried to put him, I don't crate my dogs because I can't. The claustrophobia is too much to think about for me. But dogs are not meant to be in a crate. They're pack animals. They feel unsafe. If you have really tiny dogs and they can both be in the crate and they like being in there with the door open and it's their happy place, great. But locking, some people lock their dog in a crate all day and all, for 8 hours a day. And it's just, why have a dog? It's torture for them. And we're beginning to understand that too. But Ace, I don't know what happened to them and to him there. So I understand what you're saying. You kind of have to piece it together by behaviors and try to understand what they might have gone through. So if I tried to separate them, because he loved chasing her when I first got them, and she was so tiny, and she would end up hiding from him, and I'm like, no, I can't let him do that to her because it's too much. So if I tried to put him in a room by himself, it was constant. It was howling, barking, scratching. He had terrible separation anxiety. He could not, if I walked away I put him over in a sit over somewhere. And if I was more than 5 feet from him, he lost it. So, he was hand shy. So when you go to pet them on their head or their back, he would duck. So I could see that a lot of things they're layered. It's just layer upon layer of, frustration and fear that turns into like a PTSD situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of dogs have that. So he also he chewed every corner of my carpeting. Okay. He chewed wires. He was a nervous wreck and terrified. And I know it wasn't me and Riley was not that way. So something happened at that place, where he was, very uncomfortable, very scared. It probably kept him in a crate way more than he should have been in a crate. And that's horrible for a dog like that wants to get out and roam. And he loves to explore and seek, and he'll go up to any person or dog and try to make friends. So how do you undo the damage? When I met Allison, she explained how the training helps them feel understood. So when you begin with, just the basics, the sit, the down, the stay, and the reward, they feel, okay, I'm safe. Okay, I have someone who understands me and that I can do this behavior and they will reward me and feed me, and they're being kind to me. Okay. So it was a lot of that, a lot of communicating in the ways that we just around that. And then she said, you should play with them, like, if you can, a half hour to an hour every day. So I got on the floor and we would play and do tug of war and, all this stuff. So they would learn to play safely with me and with each other. And then over time, Ace finally, it took 2 years to potty train him.
Really?
Oh my God. He's smart and stubborn. But he lets me know if he needs to go for a walk. He lets me know. He comes and gets me and we go. So it's about understanding him, but doing activities proactively where he feels understood by me and communicated with. And then he just calmed right down. And it did take about 2 years to get through all of the weird, the nervous behaviors. It took that long to get past them. And really, I would say by year 3, he was completely healed from all of that. That's how long it took. And that was 1 month in that place. Can you imagine? What Cerberus might have gone through for a prolonged period of time. And just like us, the longer it is, the worse the PTSD can be, right?
Yeah.
So the damage is layer upon layer. And I don't know that they can ever come back from that fully, but they certainly can come back from it in a way that at least, you made Cerberus feel safe and loved and heard and loved. He was you guys loved him so much. And, you took him on outings since you don't know what might have been done to him, you can, if anybody's wondering, you can just, there's never a need for punishment. And Allison made that so clear. She's like, they don't even understand it. So you could be mad 5 seconds later for something they did 5 seconds ago, and you're upset about it, but there's no connection. They're living in the present moment. So when she said that, it just clicked like, oh, of course. Right? So they're all about reward. Right? It's just about reward. You ask them to do something, and they might do it at first, or they might not do it the second time, third time, fourth, but eventually they'll get it, and you reward them. Do you get mad when they don't do it? No, because it's completely useless energy, and all it does is serve to scare them. So you're creating this balance when you're training them or when you're with them between safety and reward and comfort and not that. So
yes,
right. It's not right. You don't need to punish. You don't need to yell. All of that serves. And I cringe when I scroll and I see the person, it's a video, they think it's funny, and they're yelling at the dog, and the dog is cowering in the corner. And I'm like, I just, from time to time, I'll leave a message on there like, please, this is abusive. Please don't do this.
There is a huge difference. So the thing is, that is, in my opinion, I'm not an expert. That sounds like abuse to me. But what's interesting about like Cerberus, who was a German Shepherd, he's a bigger dog. When we got him professionally trained, we love our trainer, Sean. He's out in Louisiana now, in New Orleans. But he specialized in big, aggressive dogs. That was his thing. Because it's one thing to train I mean, I don't know about other breeds, but he basically specialized in like German Shepherds and dogs that could basically kill people.
Yes.
Which Cerberus, as kind as he was, God forbid if there was ever a moment where he was triggered, he was very much capable of causing severe damage. And so the one thing that Sean helped us understand is that there's a big difference between being aggressive and just being in charge. And that's what he needed. Is Syrup needed someone to be in charge and to show him that and to not falter. We were basically his pillar of safety. We were his pillar of love. And when he broke the rules, it wasn't about yelling at him. It wasn't about getting on his case. It was about sticking to that pattern of who's in charge. Here are the rules. Exactly. And if you broke the rules, you don't get a treat. You get a timeout. You go over here, and that's about it, right? And you get used to that pattern. And I had to learn too, because for a while you get scared, right? Like you get scared that your dog might accidentally hurt somebody, and because of that, he might get put down. So I had to also be trained myself. I had to kind of step up and become more of that leader for him. And by doing so, it did create this safer, more loving environment where I didn't have to worry about it so much. And I don't know why I want to bring this up, but I think it's just such a good story. We were on a walk one time, and I mentioned this in the previous episode. I know you heard it. Whenever I would take Syrup on a walk or we would go on hikes, I'd have to scout the area, like I'd have to preemptively plan the path, because I could not risk him, coming across a group of people with dogs, not because I wouldn't want to, but because I could keep him under control. But man, I didn't want to have all those variables. So we explored a lot of areas, a lot of remote areas. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, one time we were walking in the neighborhood, me and Marissa, and this gentleman approaches us from a distance, and we have our plan, so we're used to avoiding several paths. We were kind of made sure that we would not cross his path so that Syrup could feel safe. The gentleman just kept approaching us from a distance, and as he got closer, he stopped at a very respectable distance and just called out to us and was like, "Hey, I love your dog. Right. May I approach?" And that had never happened to us before. No one had ever asked permission to approach before. Most people don't do that. So we said, "Yeah, but he's kind of aggressive." And he's like, "No, I get it. I have a German Shepherd. I understand. They're very, very smart. And when they have anxiety, it is what it is, but I am not scared." And for whatever reason, that helped Syrup feel at ease. Like he was able to come close to us. And we had this amazing conversation. This individual who Syrup had never met before, who ideally would scare him, because his attitude was very much calm, in control, understood that the dog, while might be aggressive, understood that there's more nuances in that. It's not just an aggressive dog. There's something there. And I don't know, that story always warms my heart.
Well, I'm so glad you said it, because, so catch this, okay?
Yeah.
Dogs, we know dogs sense people's energy and their intentions, okay? And I had a friend who had a big Scooby-Doo dog, right? And
that's awesome. I love that.
Oh my God, just like Scooby-Doo. And he was huge. He was 100 pounds. And Riley, he used to pick Riley up in his mouth and carry her around.
Are you serious?
Totally. And he would lay on his side, and she would go up to his face and his ears, lick and play and clean him. And she loved him so much. She would crawl all over him, and then he would mouth her, and I did like a love story video. It was very funny about them, but she was fearless with him. She knew that dog had the best intentions with her. Okay. But we were on a walk we were hiking Runyon Canyon. Okay. Which is, do you know where that is? It's by...
Yeah.
Okay.
Very famous place to take a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, we would go there I don't know, once a month, maybe. It was really fun. And we would take all of them and hike. And I remember watching people's reactions to, his name was Diego, watching their reactions to Diego. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. They see Ace and Riley, and the love and they just, oh my God, the cuteness overload, right? They want to touch them. They want to pet them. They want to take pictures. And that love that's the exchange. That's the currency of that, of that moment in time. But Diego didn't get that. Right. everybody was afraid of him. And that energy is probably what Cerberus was reading from people.
Yep.
So if people are going to be afraid of him, then he needs to be afraid of them. And it's just that simple, right? In a general way, but then you expand that into damage done, right? And then it becomes an acute or a trigger or a reaction. And if he senses someone's really scared of him, he's going to react. And breaking that reaction is the key. And that can be done with training. But unfortunately, a lot of people want to do it with, shock collars or prong collars or things that hurt the dog, which is so barbaric. But back to the hiking trip, right? So I had this little hat that I can't put hats on my dogs. They will not tolerate it. Okay. And it was Christmas time. It was a little Santa hat, right? But a little mini one. And it had, the thing that goes around the chin. And I put the Santa hat on Diego. And it was a completely different experience. Everybody came up to Diego. What a cute hat. What a cute dog, right? Completely shifted the energy towards him, right? There you go. And that, I'll never forget that, because he was so, I remember his joy. Like he wasn't the most playful dog, but he was doing a little pouncing and he was excited, and it completely changed. And it was a shocker to both of us. Like, I can't believe what had just happened here. So people's perceptions of the dog, maybe that's why people like to dress their dogs up. I don't know. It's a lot of fun, but.
My parents used to do that too. Chispo, I love dressing them up. Yeah.
It's fun. And now that we're making apparel as well with Fluffy Butts Designs, and it's so cute. It's on our Amazon store now. So jump in there, folks. But we're going to be really expanding that. But that is exactly when you understand that about Cerberus and the fragility of his soul and the healing that it would take, and the training on both sides of the leash, as you said. And where does that time going to come from to not only understand it, right? But to take the time to understand it, and then do the behaviors and activities with him that will help him heal. You're talking about like a full-on relationship that requires, thought and action and passion. And that's where we're heading. That's what I'm loving right now about where this whole pet world is heading, is that we're acknowledging this, and we're saying, yeah, my dog is worth that. And yeah, most people rescue. And when you rescue, you're dealing with a basket of challenges. So the training, the behavior, the food, all of it, it's all part of that world that you create for your dog. And I have to say, you did a beautiful job with Cerberus, and you made his life so sweet. And you did take the time to really understand him and care for him. And you guys were just some of those videos were just so adorable. So you shared with me. So just to say, I think the reward, I know he's up in heaven and he's guiding all of this in the ways that he can. And I think this whole idea, the podcast idea, and giving people a platform to talk about all of the nuances of the relationships with their dogs is so important. And it will lead to so many great things, Eddie, for you and for all of us. But, you're going to create a community here that will inspire, and that will educate and do all the yummy things that a community can do. So I just have, congratulations on this podcast. I'm so thrilled you have me on, and I will come back as often as you like. And
this is just a part one.
Yeah.
This is part one. Okay.
You got it.
Oh man, we've talked for quite a bit. Athena, I really appreciate the kind words. And I also want to, I just want to, throw that back at you and just say how grateful I am for our friendship and for the time that you've given me to come on the show, but also for all the things that you're doing for pets. I know I've learned a lot about how to take better care of animals. And I mean, even if this conversation is any indicator of how much you care about animals, it just shows that you are on a mission to make pets live longer, live better lives, and just have the best possible life that they can have. And also, by doing that, it helps us as humans live happier lives too. Happy dog, happy person. And the fact that you're at the forefront of that is, I mean, I'm honored that I get to be in your life, and just want to say thank
I'm honored I get to be in your life too, Eddie. You're doing phenomenal things. And
I'm
we're going to do it together, right? We're doing this together. We're going to get there.
Yes.
Yes. We're changing our world for the better.
I agree. Well, is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners with? Do you want any quick little story, any quick little anecdote so we can start wrapping this up?
Oh my gosh. I'm half Greek, and the Greek side is so dramatic. So I have my deep moments, my deep dramatic moments. But when you ask a question like that, I immediately go to what my dad said before he passed. And, I was young, or I wasn't too young, but I was younger, couple decades ago now. And I loved him so much, clearly, but you never know, you never know what those last words are going to be. And it's fascinating. I was holding his hand when he passed, and I felt the love. I felt that love. I felt the angels. I felt it all. And we could talk about that sometime. It was remarkable. But he said he would hold your cheek. He would hold with one hand, like the little part of your cheek, and squeeze it. And he did that to all of us. And he said, love each other. Just love each other. And that was the message. So, that was the most profound, simple, beautiful idea, thought, battle cry. If we can do that, we got it made down here. So just love each other. That's all you got to do. The rest is the cherry on top.
That is perfect. That is beautiful. Miss Athena, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. Part 1, part 2 to be continued.
Amen. Love it. Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tales. If you love this show, if you want to hear more pet stories, please consider subscribing. And also, if you have pet stories that you want to share on the show, submit them on our website. You can just Google Tales Show or Tales Podcast, and it'll definitely come up. I want to hear pet stories, and I want to share them with the world because I love animals, and they're part of our families now. And what better way to celebrate their lives and enjoy them than to talk about why we love them and share amazing stories. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been Tales, episode 2.